When my phone rang that night, I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but the moment I saw my brother's name on the screen, something inside me tightened. I answered slowly, my voice calm, almost too calm. "Grace?" he said. His voice was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that carries weight you can't see, only feel. "Mom, she died last night." I paused. I wanted to say something, anything, but nothing came. My heart felt heavy, but not broken, not yet. Then he said it, the words that would change everything. I inherited everything, you get nothing. For a moment, I stared at the wall, trying to process the sound of betrayal hidden in casual words. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just smiled. It wasn't a smile of happiness, not at all. It was a quiet, inward smile, a smile that said, "I see you, I understand who you are." And as I hung up, the silence of my small apartment wrapped around me like a familiar blanket. I poured a cup of tea, the warmth in my hands grounding me. I let the quiet stretch, let the weight settle, and then slowly I began to think. Mom had always been the center of our little family, gentle, loving, careful. She never played favorites, or at least she never tried to make it obvious, or so I thought. Now, with her gone, I was left with nothing but questions, and grief, and a strange, aching clarity. I didn't feel angry, not yet, just aware and calm. That night, I made a decision. I would not let this moment define me. I would not let bitterness take root in my heart. I would watch, I would wait, and I would understand. Because sometimes the people closest to us, the ones we trust most, can hurt us in ways we never imagined. And sometimes the strongest response isn't shouting, it's patience, quiet observation, and yes, even a smile. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. Mom and Dad worked hard, always quietly proud of the life they built. Dad passed when I was still in college, leaving Mom to carry everything alone. She never complained. She never asked for help. She just did what had to be done. My brother, Jason, was always ambitious, bright, charming, the kind of person who could make everyone believe he was perfect. He loved Mom, in his way, but he also loved control. I saw it even when we were kids. He would make choices for the family, make promises, and quietly expect everyone to follow. Me, I was Grace, quiet, thoughtful, the one who watched, the one who stayed out of the spotlight. I loved my brother. I still do in some ways, but over the years our paths drifted. I stayed close to Mom. I kept the home tidy, kept the routine steady. Jason, he chased success, money, recognition. Mom's passing should have been a time for us to come together, to grieve, to remember. But as soon as the phone rang, I realized something had shifted. Jason had already decided the story. And somehow, without anyone saying a word, I knew this was more than just inheritance. This was him proving something. I thought about the last time I saw Mom. She smiled at me, touched my hand, and said, "Take care of yourself, Grace. Don't let anyone dim your light." I didn't know then that those words would become my anchor, my reminder that life isn't about possessions. It's about dignity, love, and knowing your worth, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. I made tea. I looked out the window. The city lights were soft, distant. The world felt unchanged, and yet my place in it had shifted. Jason had everything, legally, materially, and I had nothing. But I also had something he could never take, my clarity, my patience, my quiet strength. And in that moment, I promised myself I would survive this. I would endure, and eventually, I would see the truth for what it was. The days after Mom passed were quiet, almost painfully quiet. I stayed in her house for a few days, making sure everything was in order, cleaning, sorting her things, remembering. I tried not to let my eyes linger too long on anything that would make me cry, but sometimes grief finds a way, sneaking into the small cracks of ordinary life. Jason didn't visit. At first, I told myself he was busy. He had work, he had his own life. But as the days passed, I realized something uncomfortable. He didn't need to be here. He already had what mattered. Everything else didn't concern him. I found myself walking through the rooms Mom had loved, touching objects she had cherished. Her old teacup, chipped at the rim but polished by years of care. Her knitting basket, carefully organized, waiting for hands that would never pick up the needles again. Her letters, tucked away in drawers, some addressed to me, some to Jason. Letters full of love, full of small advice, full of warmth. I opened a few. Mom had written to Jason about life, about ambition, about taking care of your family. I read her words carefully, and I felt a pang of sadness. She loved him deeply, yes, but I could sense a tension in her writing, a worry that one day he might value the wrong things: money, control, recognition. And then I realized maybe she knew. Maybe she saw it coming, even before I did. I stayed there, silent, remembering. Sometimes I would catch myself talking out loud as if she could hear me. "Mom, I wish you were here," I whispered. "I wish I had your guidance. I wish—" I trailed off, swallowed the lump in my throat, and breathed. Then came the lawyer's call. Jason had already been there, signed the papers, taken the house, taken the savings, taken the items of value, and left me with memories. I didn't cry, not yet. I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I simply nodded over the phone, thanked the lawyer politely, and hung up. And then I sat in the quiet, thinking about what it meant to truly have nothing. At first, it felt like emptiness, a hollow ache. But slowly I realized something. Having nothing in their eyes didn't mean having nothing in mine. I still had my life, my mind, my memories, my dignity. And maybe that was worth more than all the material things in the world. The first real tension came when Jason texted me. "Grace, can you move out of Mom's house? It's mine now." I stared at the words. My stomach tightened. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My first instinct was anger. My second instinct was hurt. And then, as always, I took a deep breath. I replied calmly, "Jason, I need some time. I'm sorting through Mom's things. I'll be out soon." No apology, no explanation, just honesty, just a boundary. Days turned into weeks. I started making quiet plans, small steps, not dramatic gestures. I sold a few items I didn't need, packed up keepsakes, stored some things at a friend's house. Jason was distant, but he checked in occasionally, always with a tone of ownership, never warmth. It hurt, deeply, not because he had taken things, but because he had never asked, because he had never thought to include me, because everything we had shared as children seemed like it had vanished overnight. And then, a small incident at the grocery store reminded me why I needed strength more than ever. I ran into Jason there. He smiled, bright and practiced, and said, "Grace, I heard you were living in Mom's place. Need help moving?" I felt my chest tighten, my mind racing for the right response. I forced a smile, calm and measured. "Thanks, Jason. I've got it under control." That was it. A few words, polite, firm. But inside, I felt the old patterns rising, the old feelings of being overlooked,
minimized, unseen. I reminded myself, this isn't about him, it's about me, my choices, my path, my strength. And yet, as I walked home that evening, I couldn't shake the quiet pain, the subtle betrayal, the understanding that life isn't always fair, that people we love can hurt us without malice, or sometimes with it, that family doesn't always mean protection. But I also reminded myself of Mom's words, "Don't let anyone dim your light." So I began to focus on small things, my work, my health, my routines, the quiet moments of peace I could still create. I cooked the meals Mom used to love. I tended the garden. I sat on the porch in the mornings, sipping coffee, listening to the wind rustle the trees. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to reclaim a sense of normalcy. Jason didn't like that. He didn't call as often. His texts became sharp, clipped, demanding, a reminder that the house, the money, the inheritance, they had given him power, and yet the quiet resilience I carried was something he could not touch. The first real confrontation came on a rainy afternoon. I was carrying a box of Mom's things to my car when he appeared in the driveway, dripping wet, expression tight. "Grace," he said, voice low, "why are you still here? I told you to move out weeks ago." I met his gaze, calm, even gentle. "Jason, I'm taking care of Mom's things. You don't need to worry. I'll be out soon." He shook his head, frustration clear. "Soon isn't good enough. This is mine now." And in that moment, I realized something profound. This wasn't about objects or money. It was about control, about proving he was right, that he was superior, that I was nothing. And that's when I knew my real challenge was not the house, the inheritance, or even Jason. My challenge was keeping my own heart steady, not letting anger, not letting resentment, not letting bitterness take root. I smiled inwardly, as I always did, because deep down I understood this was not my defeat, it was the beginning of my awareness, and in that quiet understanding, I found a strange, tender strength.
The weeks after the initial confrontation felt heavier than I expected. Every interaction with Jason was a reminder that what we had shared as siblings no longer mattered. Every text, every phone call, every brief encounter was tinged with control, judgment, or dismissal. I tried to maintain my routines. I went to work, cooked, cleaned, and kept myself grounded in small moments of peace. But the quiet, once comforting, now felt fragile, almost temporary. The house that had been Mom's sanctuary seemed different. Shadows lingered in the corners, and even the sunlight felt hesitant, as if it too knew that something had shifted. One evening, I found myself sitting in Mom's favorite chair, a cup of tea warming my hands. I flipped through one of her journals, the pages filled with her neat handwriting. And there it was, a note she had written to me, tucked between other entries. "Grace, always remember, strength isn't loud, it's quiet, it's patience, it's seeing clearly what others cannot." I held the journal close, letting her words sink in. That night, I resolved to focus on clarity, to observe rather than react, to let the world reveal itself to me naturally. But the clarity alone would not shield me from Jason's increasing interference. He began making decisions about Mom's estate without informing me. He sold items I had wanted to keep, decisions made hastily, without consideration. He even began changing the locks on the house, a quiet but unmistakable message: "You are no longer welcome." I felt a sting of hurt, but I refused to show it. Instead, I spoke calmly when he confronted me. "Jason, these things matter to you, I understand, but Mom's memory matters to me too." He shook his head, voice sharp. "Memory doesn't pay the bills, Grace. Don't get sentimental." And there it was, the truth I had been afraid to fully see. This wasn't about items, inheritance, or practicality. This was about power, about proving he was superior, about erasing me from the story entirely.
The first real crack in our relationship happened at a family lawyer's office. I had agreed to meet to discuss remaining paperwork, thinking perhaps some form of compromise was possible. But Jason arrived with a stack of documents already signed, decisions made without consultation. "Jason, I've taken care of everything," he said casually, sliding the papers across the table. "There's nothing for you to worry about." I felt my heart tighten, but I forced calm. "Jason, Mom would have wanted me involved. This isn't just about ownership, it's about family." He smiled, almost amused. "Family doesn't mean entitlement, Grace. You'll understand one day." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had always assumed that Jason and I shared a bond that went beyond material things, but now I realized that the bond I believed in was one-sided, built on appearances rather than understanding. That night, I went home and sat quietly, trying to make sense of it all. The betrayal wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was calm, calculated, and that made it hurt even more. A few days later, I received a letter. It was from Mom's attorney, addressed to me specifically. I opened it carefully, my fingers trembling slightly. Inside was something I hadn't expected, a note Mom had written just before she passed. "Grace, if you are reading this, know that I always loved you. My heart is with you always. I wanted to ensure that Jason had what he needed, but never forget that your worth cannot be measured by possessions. Stay strong, be kind, stand tall. You are my light." I sat for a long time holding the letter. Tears came quietly, not of anger, but of understanding. Mom had seen what I could not see, the imbalance, the control, the subtle ways Jason might hurt me, and she had left me something more precious than anything he could take, her faith in me. That night, I realized something crucial. My battle was not with Jason, not really. My challenge was to protect my own heart, to maintain my integrity, and to survive this with grace. No pun intended. The next confrontation was inevitable. Jason came over one rainy evening, insisting on clearing out more of the house. I stood in the doorway, calm but resolute. "Jason, please, the items I'm keeping are important to me. Mom would have wanted that." He sneered slightly. "Important? Grace, you're sentimental. You don't understand practical life." I met his gaze steadily. "Maybe not, but I understand respect, and Mom deserved that from both of us." For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the rain tapping on the roof, the distant hum of cars outside. And then, without a word, he turned and left. The silent retreat was almost more painful than an argument. It was a message, clear and unspoken. "You are no longer welcome. You are nothing in my world."
And yet, despite everything, I smiled quietly once more. Not because I was happy, not because I didn't care, but because I understood something he would never see. Power is not in possession. Power is in patience, in clarity, in knowing your own worth even when others try to diminish it. The days following the last confrontation felt different. There was no shouting, no dramatic fallout, just a quiet shift. I realized that I no longer needed Jason's approval or his acknowledgement to validate my place in the world. That realization, though subtle, gave me more power than I had ever felt before. I began to focus fully on what I could control: my life, my work, my home. I rented a small apartment in the city, a place that didn't have the weight of old memories or family expectations. It was modest, quiet, and mine. I decorated it simply, adding touches that reminded me of Mom: her teacup set, a few framed photos, a vase she had always loved. It wasn't about holding on to the past, it was about carrying her spirit with me. Work became my anchor. Each morning, I threw myself into projects, meetings, deadlines, small victories that built confidence and reminded me of my own value. Colleagues noticed a change in me. I wasn't the quiet, overlooked sibling anymore. I was focused, calm, and unwavering. They saw strength where before there had been quiet observation.
Even Jason noticed. He called occasionally, trying to assert authority or check on my progress. I responded politely, never with anger, just firm, clear boundaries. "I'm handling things, Jason. Thank you for asking." Sometimes he lingered, sensing he couldn't control me. I imagined the frustration building on the other end, but it no longer reached me. I was free from that weight. One afternoon, I received a call from a neighbor who had been close to Mom. "Grace, I found some of your mother's old journals in the attic. She wanted you to have them. I didn't know how to reach you." I felt a sudden warmth in my chest. Opening the package, I read through the pages slowly. Mom had written about life, love, and family, not material possessions, not disputes over ownership. She had written about strength, kindness, patience, and integrity. Every page felt like a conversation with her, a gentle reminder that even when people disappoint you, life can still be beautiful. It was in those pages that I began to see a new perspective. Jason's actions, while hurtful, were not my responsibility to fix. I could no longer control him, and I didn't have to. What I could control was my response, my heart, my choices. And slowly, I began to build something new. I volunteered at a local community center teaching children to read. I reconnected with old friends I had drifted from. I started small hobbies, painting, journaling, cooking new recipes. Each small act was a declaration. I was alive. I was worthy. I could thrive without anyone's permission. One rainy evening, I found myself at the old house again, not to argue, not to reclaim objects, but simply to say goodbye. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, remembering laughter, warmth, and love. "Mom," I whispered softly, "thank you for trusting me. Thank you for teaching me to see clearly." As I stepped outside, the rain fell gently, washing away the last traces of pain. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic, it was quiet, soft, and real. And in that quiet, I felt a deep peace I had not known before. Weeks later, Jason came by one last time. He looked tense, expectant, but when I opened the door, I simply smiled. "Jason," I said calmly, "I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I'm living my life now. I hope you find peace too." He hesitated, eyes flicking away. He nodded, muttered something, and left. No words of apology, no grand gestures, but it didn't matter. I had already found my own resolution, my own freedom. That night, I sat on my porch, sipping tea, listening to the soft hum of the city. The memories of betrayal were there, yes, but they no longer had power over me. I had survived. I had grown, and I had discovered something profound. Life is not about possessions. It is not about who takes what or who wins or loses. Life is about integrity, patience, and knowing your worth, quietly, without needing validation from others. And sometimes the greatest victory is simply surviving with grace. The seasons changed, and with them my life began to settle into a new rhythm. I had learned that peace doesn't come from grand gestures or dramatic reconciliations. It comes quietly, slowly, like sunlight through a window, warming a room without demanding attention.
I still thought of Jason sometimes. I wondered if he ever understood the depth of what he had lost. Not objects, not money, but connection, trust, and a sister who loved him despite everything. But I no longer needed him to understand. I had come to see that people act according to who they are, not who we hope them to be. And hoping for someone to change often steals more from us than from them. Instead, I focused on the life I could shape. My apartment became a sanctuary, filled with small joys, a vase of fresh flowers on the windowsill, the soft glow of a lamp at night, the sound of birds in the morning. I wrote in Mom's journals, adding my own reflections, my own lessons, my own quiet victories. And in that, I discovered something unexpected: gratitude. Not the loud, performative kind, but a steady inner warmth. Gratitude for my resilience, for the love Mom had given me, for the clarity I had gained. Gratitude for the realization that life's worth isn't measured by what others take from you, but by how you carry yourself through it. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I smiled softly to myself. I remembered that night when Jason had called, so calm, so precise, delivering his words like a verdict. You get nothing. I had smiled then too, quietly, and now I understood why. That smile was the beginning of my awakening. It was the moment I chose myself, my dignity, and my future over bitterness and resentment. I had survived betrayal, loss, and disappointment, but more importantly, I had grown. I had learned to trust my own heart, to see clearly, to act with kindness and patience, even when the world tried to teach me otherwise. And that, I realized, is the greatest inheritance anyone can leave behind. Not money, not property, not possessions, but strength, clarity, compassion, and self-respect. Those are the treasures that last. As the night deepened, I whispered a quiet promise to myself and to Mom. I will live my life fully, with grace, with dignity, and with love. Always. That is my choice, and nothing can take it from me. And in that stillness, I felt complete. Not because I had everything I wanted, but because I had everything I needed. My heart was full, my mind was clear, and my spirit was free. Because sometimes the most profound victories are silent. Sometimes the strongest response is calm. Sometimes surviving with grace is more powerful than any material gain. And I smiled again, softly, peacefully, knowing that life, with all its pain and beauty, was mine to live fully.